So, Daniel, do you sometimes have an unsettled mind?
Oh, yes, for sure. Uh, for sure, I have. And thank you very much for having me here today. Um, yeah, and hopefully this will in the conversation today. I don't know where this conversation gonna go. Maybe more the direction. Um, and hopefully it's going to be in some way soothing and probably and hopefully creating some kind of clarity
Hmm.
regarding it. And I remember our WhatsApp chat and like, what should the topic be? And back and forth and back and forth. And at some point you're like, yeah, we did, it resonated, this topic, like looking toward source and yeah. But I definitely have an unsettled mind sometimes, of course. I'm human, so for sure.
And so we'll be having a conversation of how do you go about soothing it? And maybe it's not a how necessarily, because of course you're coming from a three principles understanding. So it's more of an understanding or more of a seeing. But what helps you to soothe your unsettled mind?
Well, I would say there are a few things that I don't know if the right word is needs to happen for me to be able to even go in that direction. And one thing is, first of all, I need to notice that I'm unsettled. That my experience of life in that moment is actually not, I don't know, helpful or uh, good for me to experience in that sense. Or if I'm suffering in and having a challenge. So I usually say that the first thing that needs to happen is that I need to notice that is happening. Because if I don't notice that, I will probably keep going in that road, in that direction, on that road. And and I can share a story that happened quite recently regarding me having an unsettled mind. It was it was about 2 weeks now. Actually, on Thursday, now this upcoming Thursday, it will be 2 weeks ago. So almost two and a half. So it's quite recent, as you can understand. Um, I had have a lot of things on my plate with different courses I had to deliver, prepare for the courses. It was not my courses, so I'm just being a consultant delivering a course, a training classic, sales training and stuff like this. I like had to learn the topic and there was these two trainings were a pilot and I had the end customer who's like the decision maker was on that call at both calls and viewing the content and the delivery. So I was like quite up in my head for when I prepared and when I also delivered the training. I had a lot of coaching sessions and yeah, the schedule was quite full, I would say. And on top of that, bad sleep, short of time in my bed sleeping. Um, and I had to have a coaching session with my coach during that week. And he pointed out a thing for me that was becoming very clear in a new way when we had that conversation. So Thursday night, I'm home alone with my youngest son. We were cheating by eating in front of the computer, watching Sing 2, the movie Sing 2, the animated movie, and in the kitchen table, and really enjoying the time there. And then we needed to pause that. We're going to continue doing. I just want to clean up the kitchen, and I felt I have to clean up the kitchen. And the morning after, I was going to have a workshop for a group in a network where I'm a member. And I have said, yeah, can you have a workshop in a couple of months before? Yeah, sure, I can do that, I said. But I don't know what I'm going to talk about. So when I'm doing my dishes and taking care of everything in the kitchen, and I'm thinking, oh, now I need to prepare that. And I felt how I was stressing myself up in some way. And then a thought came that I realized and saw a day or two before with my coach, and that was, this is thought in action. And suddenly when I saw that, oh yeah, this is thought in action. And I don't need to know what I will talk about thought in action. Oh, that's what I'm going to talk about. Oh, I don't know exactly how I will start. Oh, well, I know the direction. I will trust that I will solve it tomorrow. And it was like a ton of weight just like released from my shoulders. And I could really feel how the stress just disappeared. And suddenly I had a soothed, settled mind in some way, right? And I was like, okay, good. Okay, I'm coming. And I joined my son, and we finished the movie, and I even cried in that movie. It was really a good movie. But I felt so relieved when I did see that was thought in action, creating my experience and working myself up and getting stressed and trying to find out a way of how should I do it, what should I do in the morning, how should I present, what should the workshop be, and I could like ramp it up, and suddenly all of that disappeared in real time, and that was super helpful. So the next morning I talked about that, and I started, I'm gonna be honest, hey, I have no clue what we're gonna talk about today. I know a direction, and we will see where I start. And then I also came to this and explain and try to point to them what thought in action actually is. And thought in action, when I emphasize back then, but also here, is it's not the thoughts in action. It's actually the source, the power of thought, the energy that creates thoughts in us. That's what's in action. Always. And that time too, and this time too, it was actually thought in action. Because if I would start looking more into the weeds, it would be the thoughts that I'm thinking and trying to make sense of that. But I didn't need to. We don't need to get lost in the weeds. The specifics of the different kind of thoughts that we have. more helpful to see, oh, this is thought in action. So, I don't know. That was a powerful moment. I think that is one of the biggest insights I have had into this, and it's very recent, and it was very helpful in many ways.
When it speaks to what you were saying, that you first need to notice that you're in the weeds of your own thoughts, that you are focusing on the contents of your thinking. And that you felt that. It felt like stress and pressure and overwhelm, and I need to figure this out. I talked with one of my clients recently about, I think a lot of times we are trying to solve a problem that we don't have yet.
Mm.
That we're trying to solve future problems when we're very good at solving problems in the moment, like the right now problems, but we're not as good at solving future problems, especially from a place of being in the weeds and trying to figure it out, and pushing and stressing. And then you saw your reality in a brand new way. You saw that it was this thought in action, that your experience of life was coming from the power of your thinking. And that made a difference for you.
Made all the difference. Made all the difference. Yeah.
And then the cool part was then the next morning when you actually had to figure it out, you had the problem. You just had something to talk about.
Mm.
It came to you. You didn't have to figure it out the night before.
No.
And it was a gift then that you got to experience that enjoyable movie with your family. And I had something similar. So my mother-in-law, I was caring for her. She recently passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was challenging to care for her, and I would walk over every single morning, and I could either be in the story in my head, and the most important part is believing the story. So if I was believing the story about how this is so hard and I'm going to be there all day, and I was there all day yesterday, that didn't feel good, and that felt like stress and pressure. But when I just saw it as a story like you did, you saw the source, that it's thought in action. It wasn't a big deal, and I would go over there and I would just spend the day with her, and it wasn't a big scary thing like I was making it out to be.
Mm.
And I wasn't getting caught in the weeds. I was looking at it in a new way.
Yeah, and in you, in this case, you didn't need to force yourself there, right? It just happened, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I didn't have to think about it in a new way and change my mindset.
Mm.
And I think that's where a lot of people are going to. But there's a new way of seeing that comes to you when you let go of the story, when you let go of all of these things.
Exactly. And we need to see that we are making up the story also. And innocently, I would say, right? Because as I see, we don't have any control over whatever we're gonna think. We don't have the control over the power, the thought in action. We don't have control over that. That is just happening, and we can't control what we're gonna think. in what direction. And as soon as we start judging ourselves for the way we think, well, then it's not going to be so helpful, because then we are judging someone who is actually innocent, right? And so I think, and I feel also that it's very helpful and soothing for us to see that we are innocent, whatever we are thinking. And that we don't need to fix it. We don't need to fix our thinking. We just, I don't know if it's need even, but we can have a big benefit of understanding thought in action, whatever that is, but more seeing the thought in action, right? That this is actually happening now. And as I draw it, and I did steal the the drawing from my coach, because he showed it to me in that way, that we have ups and downs, right? That's thought in action every time, always. And life in some way just happening, right? And we could have happy thoughts and good thoughts and having a good mood. Same situation, it could be that we maybe are in the bottom. So be it. Hopefully, the more we can see the source of that, and in some sense know where it comes from, might do that the downs are maybe not so deep and maybe not so long.
When we're also kind of making up that they're downs too. That's a story. Like what you were talking about is how what I like to call like a metacognition. Like it's thinking about thinking. When we get into that, we get into just all of these layers, because you're trying to figure out your thinking, you're trying to control it or push it away, and it's just creating more and more noise. And that is what metacognition does. And there's this new level of relaxation when you can let that thinking be there. And like you said, like, let it be okay. Let it be not a problem. Let it be something that you don't need to solve.
Yeah. And also, being okay to feel the way we feel. Because if I'm in a slope and down, probably the feeling is not going to be so nice. It doesn't need to be very dramatic, but quite uncomfortable in some way. And in that time, if I'm okay with not being okay, feeling wise, if that even's a word, I don't know, but being okay with the emotions and feelings and the turmoil I might have in my body, that probably is gonna pass faster, or not be there for so long. And I usually say that the feeling in itself can never hurt us. It feels bad. Yes. It doesn't feel good. Yes, I understand that. But it doesn't hurt us. It's just giving us a notion that in this case, maybe we are believing thought in action a little bit too much now. Maybe we are doing metacognition or whatever, right? And so if we, I don't know, I use this quirky metaphor, but if we are, for example, what do you say, sprangle your ankle or sprinkle? What do you say when you step on your foot and you twist it, the ankle? What do you call
Yeah,
it?
well, you would sprain it.
Sprain it. Good. Thank
Hmm.
you. Not sprangle. I don't know. I made a mixed word of sprain and ankle. So when you
I
sprain
like
your
that.
ankle, yeah,
I
sprangle.
think that should be,
It's a
hey
new
man,
word.
I did a sprangle. It was
Yeah. That's wonderful. So when we do that, it hurts really bad, usually, depending on. But if we keep walking on the foot, it's gonna hurt. But the pain we feel doesn't damage the foot. The pain doesn't damage our body. The the, the uncomfortable feeling, whatever on that scale it is in our body when we are in our emotions and feelings about the situation, it doesn't damage our body. So we actually don't need to do anything about it. In this case, maybe the sprained foot may be telling us, hey, don't step on the foot. Be gentle here. Maybe you shouldn't use your foot in the same way you did just a minute ago, right? When you were running. So maybe we don't need to use our thinking and taking it that direction as we did before we started feeling like this. And sometimes we don't know what we've been having kind of thoughts and what we've been thinking, but it doesn't matter. The source is the same. And we don't need to do metacognition and try to figure things out. And it's more about, this is happening. Not as a technique, not as a method. It might be helpful in the beginning, yeah. Thought in action. I had that like a mantra. It came to me without me forcing it a couple of days before that happened. So maybe asking yourself, yeah, could this be thought in action? Right? If that thought pops up and you have the possibility to think that right then, yeah, that can help. Who knows, right? I don't know if that makes sense. But...
Yeah, you're creating your reality, and it's good to question it. Is this a reality that is made of thinking? It's made of my judgments, insecurities, and fears? Or is this a reality that is closer to the spiritual reality? Because in Sid Banks's book, The Missing Link, he talks about how you have your higher mind or divine mind, and then you have your personal mind, and that you can use your personal mind in a way that aligns with the higher mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see it as it's gonna be it's our reality no matter what, right? Whatever we experience is is our reality.
Mm.
So it actually doesn't really matter in that sense to maybe question too much. It's like, yeah, this is what I'm experiencing. Might this be thought in action? I hope I get that next time when I'm really needed. I hope, but I don't know. And then hopefully that solves a lot of things. It doesn't solve maybe a thing that I need to take care of tomorrow, but it might. But it might not too. But more of, oh well, right now. I can't eat tomorrow's breakfast now. I can't solve a problem tomorrow now. Or yeah, I can't solve a problem now that I'm gonna solve tomorrow. Yeah. So it's impossible. But that's what we're trying to do with our thinking. And it's in, yeah, we can do that till we die without actually solving anything. Of course, so yeah, innocently, but we all do from time to time, I would say.
There's another layer here, because I think even if we solve the problem, another problem is going to prop up, because our mind, our survival brain, is this problem-solving machine. And I had a moment that said, what if that survival brain is creating problems that it can solve so that it can be useful?
Mm.
I think Nina's phone was raising her hand, and I would like to be able to. I think she might have a question, so I'd like to be able to let her ask it if she is still available.
Yes, thank you. I just love that you mentioned Sid Banks, because a couple of years ago when I was dealing with really bad anxiety, like OCD and panic, Sid Banks and Bill Petit are people that I listened to about the three principles that really kind of helped me get a different perspective on what I was going through. And it kind of separated that, I'm losing it to, oh, I'm just experiencing this. Like it's detaching that identity to like anxiety, like where people are like, oh, I have an anxiety disorder, versus like, this is just what I'm experiencing right now. This is just reflecting where I'm at currently in my life because of all the stress. And I've gotten into this relationship of being fearful, the fear of fear and things like that. And so Sid Banks' work just kind of helps solidify the whole, the thoughts are just that, they're thoughts. And sometimes we get wrapped up into like our mind versus like the essence of who we are. And it was helpful in my journey. But it's frustrating for me because I went like last year completely just feeling at peace. And even with the things that occurred last year, I was able to handle them just fine. And then the last like 11 months for me have been really stressful with different things in my life. And I kind of sent me back into like a spiral where I had like a mini panic attack. And then it just like, it's like it flooded in everything that I dealt with 2 years ago, with waking up with constant anxiety and just knots in my stomach, just not wanting to be by myself, codependency. And I guess what's frustrating to me is usually when you hear or see people who have applied like the work and they've overcome certain things, it's like that it clicks in them and it's moving forward. I haven't really seen people where they get the work and then like a year later, it's like they almost relapse back to where they started with it's like almost all that work went out the window. And I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I just wanted some insight on that. I've also been reading Claire Week's book. I don't know if anyone's familiar with her work about anxiety and fear and panic, about it being like a nervous illness where you practice stress for so long, your body gets really sensitized to those sensations. And it's just about being with them without judgment. So if you're feeling, anxious, it's not a bad thing. It's just that's how you're feeling, and kind of have no judgment. Be the observer, and it's about desensitizing. So I'm trying to remember the work again, but I guess for me, it's like, if you can find yourself back at square one, does that mean that it never really stuck? Or maybe you just haven't had a practice in a while, or just kind of like insight on that. I don't know if I put that in a good delivery enough where it's understood what my question is.
Well, we'll see. Thank you, Nina. Yeah, so I would say if I don't know if relapse is a good word to use, but when we maybe feel that we lost some progress, when I have done that, I would say I haven't had any real insights into maybe a specific area, more like a blind spot. Because it's easy to hear things and understand, quote unquote, intellectually. Like, it sounds logical and sounds true, but it's not really really as an insight that changes. And when that has happened, then I might struggle in those areas because I haven't really had an insight to it. So, and because when I talk to a person and they say, yeah, I know it's my thinking, it's like, no, you don't. Because in that topic, whatever we are talking about, we don't really see and know in that moment that it's thought in action, as I say, then, and not instead of just talking about thinking. We don't see that if we say, yeah, yes, no, but I suffer and it's hard. And so in that case, I would say, yeah, we don't really see that. Maybe intellectually we know, but it looks so true, so we can't see the difference between it.
Can I? Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's I got the question maybe a few years back. It's like, okay, so do you have any technique or tools? And I said, yeah, you have a tool. You're using it right now. Oh, what's that? Yeah, your phone. And the phone in that case was listen to podcasts or books or watch YouTube's, something like that. That could be a tool by listening and keep deepen an understanding in some way, because you will and listen again to things you have listened to or read or viewed, and you're probably going to hear new things. So maybe that's a practice I don't know, to do, right? And see, because I see for myself, the more I like listen to things and getting more and more blind spots out, but new comes that I don't know of. But it's not compulsory, and I have to listen. It's like I listen to whatever I feel like I like to listen to. But that's, I would say to someone, like, yeah, keep listening, keep looking in this direction, and see if you see something new.
Okay.
And I really liked how you described the blind spot. Like you, what she's doing, I think I think what you're doing is you're bumping into a new exception, or what you think might be an exception to the rule of the rule that our experience is created from thought. And so you're feeling that. And actually, that sensitivity to it is helpful because it's showing you that you're using your mind in a way that's unhelpful. The pain is showing you, don't use thought in this way. This way of using thought is painful. So it's trying to guide you back home. So I don't want you to become less sensitive to it. In fact, I want my clients to become more sensitive. I want them to feel really bad if they're using their minds in a way that hurts them. Is any of that landing for you, Nina?
About, I think what kind of resonates for me is just like, it's letting me know where I've been using thought like in the wrong way. Because to me, it's kind of like I can see where it wasn't just out of the blue. It was like a buildup of being in constant stress and worry, like my daughter being sick, my health, things like that. So I can see where it was kind of like, you know, again, referring back to Sid Banks, and Bill Pettit is one of the ones I found speaks to me the most on Sid Banks' teachings. It's like a love letter. When you start to have that negative thinking or sensations, it's a love letter that you've been doing it again. It's like a wake up, like, hey, we're using our thoughts and going the wrong way, and that's, you know, not what we're needing to use that for. So I guess for me, it's what doesn't resonate with me is feeling it more, or not desensitizing, because then there's other, you know, anxiety professionals who say the way to get over anxiety is to accept it without judgment. So it's allowing yourself to feel it, not feel it worse, but just allowing it to be there so that you can desensitize from it. So that part didn't land for me, because I'm like, well, that's the issue that I'm having, is I'm getting hung up and trying not to think about it. But then, you know, people who struggle with anxiety, they've gotten in a habit already of the looping, the rumination, and then the physical sensations. So then they've gotten to a place where it's labeled bad. Oh no, if I feel this, I'm going to spiral. And so for me, I don't want to feel it more. I want to be able to, because that's the problem I've been having. I've been feeling it too much, where I've made it a threat. And maybe I misinterpreted what you were saying, but for me, I'm trying to now, what helped me before with kind of those deeper knowings from different teachers, but also it was allowing them to be there and still try to go about my day, instead of like the avoidance and things like that. I'm trying to, you know, have my stomach in knots and still try to eat something. Or like the other day, for some reason, I was supposed to go to the gym and on a walk, and I just like got in my head about like, oh, what if like you go on a walk and you're by yourself and you spiral and you're out. And I'm like, and I knew that was going to be a way for me to avoid going out, but I did it anyways. So I just did it anxious. So I understand, you know, that part about, it's a good indicator that, and I'm trying to practice that more, because I don't notice sometimes. I think we make it such an unconscious habit where we're like, we've already been doing it for an hour in our day. We're like body scanning. Is the anxiety there? Am I going to be anxious today? Am I going to be anxious now? What am I feeling now? And then it's like an hour later, I'm like, oh, I'm doing it again. And so sometimes it takes, but I'm doing it. I'm starting to catch it more and more, where I'm kind of switching out of the, oh, I see what I've been practicing. Let me just, it's fine. Like, it's fine if it's there or if it's not there. There's nothing to be done. If you're feeling it, there's nothing to be done. If you're not feeling it, there's nothing to be done. Like, and just kind of find that center for me. So my biggest goal is, I would like to be able to lay in my bed for hours all night and watch Netflix if I wanted to, because I can feel like I can relax instead of feeling like I can't relax. So I'm trying to get back to that. But I do recognize where it's like, maybe I could have used a better word than relapse, because to me, I'm like, oh my God, like, how am I, how am I feeling all this again? I just went through a year of like, you know, being able to be by myself at night and being fine and going out and being fine. But you said something about, you know, shedding a light like on a blind spot. And then I'm looking back and I'm like, well, I did still kind of have limitations on that. I still kind of had, I felt good within the bubble I had built it in. And so I kind of went outside that bubble. And when I had to apply that, I guess that's where it, you know, it didn't stick, because anyways, I'm rambling now, but I'm trying to basically just remember, and it does resonate with me too, about listening to the podcast, listening to the YouTubes, listening to the things that help you to get that on a deeper level. Because the one thing that we tend to do as humans is we look for others to reaffirm our victimhood. So I'm trying to stay away from that. You know, there's plenty of people you'll find online who will reaffirm the pain that you're in. And it's more of a dark tunnel instead of, no, there's the light. Here's the light. Let's focus on the light. Let's get back to that. So that's kind of where I'm at. And it's frustrating because it's like, I know the work. It's just now I have to remember to practice it again, and then kind of break out of the habit of what I've been doing, which is using my thoughts for the wrong, you know, too much time into the wrong thing that hasn't helped me at all. Like worrying about your day for half your day does not help you at all.
No, I see it also. The more we try to focus on and scanning, how do I feel, then maybe we are triggering something also, right? It's instead of, I mean, your body will tell you. If you are starting to feel worry, you will notice. You don't need to scan your body for it. And I don't know. See if you can listen with new ears when you listen to Sydney Banks or Bill Pettit, for example, and listen fresh. Oh, I remember this. Oh, I heard this. And then like maybe more gentle. Oh, this is interesting. I recognize this a little bit, but still being open to see if you can hear something new. I can recommend Dr. Bill's Pettit podcast series called Wellbeing Podcast. Wisdom and Wellbeing. You can find it on SoundCloud. It's super good. I can put a link into the chat also.
Yes, please. I didn't know he had a podcast.
He's been a guest in a podcast series that is really good. It goes through different kind of so-called disorders and stuff like that. I'm going through that right now, third time, I think. I see new things all the time. Thank you, Nina, and I believe in you.
Thanks.
We have somebody else who's raised their hands. Go ahead. I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly, and you're going to then correct me. Divyesh Shah.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Divyesh. Yeah.
Divyesh?
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Sorry, it's 5:20 a.m. in Sydney here, so I'm just lying in bed.
Good morning.
Yeah. Thanks for this wonderful session, webinar, and the conversation. Yeah, in Sydney, I think our downside is all of yours from Europe and US. They land at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. And the key is not to put the alarm, otherwise you start thinking about it. You just, if you wake up, you wake up. If not, who gives a shit, you know? Otherwise, I had thinking on thinking, which you were talking about, like, oh, I have to wake up and do this. So, yeah, I think my hand went up and I've forgotten half of what I wanted to say by the time we are here now. And it was to do with what the other, the conversation regarding excessive thinking, overthinking, rumination, projecting, worrying about worrying. And am an expert in this, lived all my life in this, and I went through many modalities is the wrong word or right word, I don't know, but many other ways, particularly those which got me to the three principles, and they all had a role to play, whether it was Carl Jung, and I come from Indian background, so I delved into our own Bhagavad Gita and the wisdom ingrained in that, or even all the spiritual this, that, and that. And some of them landed very beautifully, including Jung with his unconscious thought and this and shadow. And however, it was still all with that barrier of intellect I had built throughout my life as my coping, as my safety, as my go-to mechanism to live this life. And now the three principles I came 4.5 years ago was asking to dismantle this belief system about intellect protecting you. And it's a tough ride. But in the first hearing, as Mavis Kahn uses the word listening or something like that, deep listening, everything comes up regularly. And one of the things, as the layers of an onion, you peel them little by little, in my case, and very slow. And I don't even know about insights till somebody pointed out that, Divya, since we last started talking, though somebody was actually Christine Heath and Dr. Judy Sedgman. And I've attended their program, which is a Wednesdays or Thursdays, depends on your time. But it's a very wonderful way to have an engaged live conversation with two wonderful, insightful ladies together. And they've held me, when I say they, it's not their wisdom is theirs. Their insight is theirs. There's experience, but they create a space for my resonance and a hope, which is the possibility, not wishful thinking, but the possibility of insight-prone being of Divya. Now, insight-prone was again pointed out to me by Linda Prensky also, that when I mentioned this rumination, worrying, anxiety, constant living in it, sabotaging half days, even now. And I went through, Nina was talking about softening, lightening up, everything, and then it hits like a rock again. And Linda Francis was a one-liner. She just said, you need an insight. And then I go, what the hell is this insight all the time? Why can't we just learn something, a tactic, a strategy? So the intellect was trying to warm its way back in. But what you guys mentioned and what you said here, Daniel, the sheer seeing of the gift of thought, and what a lovely word. You see, this is why it helps, as you said earlier, to listen to Rich or you or anyone. The other day I was lying and listening, and Marina Galan reinforced what you said. She used the word radical responsibility with the gift of thought. And so you get pointers, but it's still not your own. You get a lot of fingers, but ultimately it's my own finger within me, which I hope will dislodge my tethering to this obsessive compulsive thinking. But the good news is, if it helps, is I was mentioning this to Christine Heath and Judy 3 weeks ago, and they said, Divyesh, when did you come to this concert? Every Friday, in my case, a Thursday in the US, coming in our conversation. I said, well, it's 2.5, 3 years, but I don't know. I just feel the same old shit and that and that. And they say, do you realize we can tell you've slowed down? Do you know that a lot of time you come out is laden with wisdom, and you're doing it anyway, except you think otherwise. So we don't even know sometimes we are heading in the right direction or we're offloading, but other people who, like here, know and just find solace in that. And I'm absolutely, I woke up with excessive thinking, but listening, sitting here, it gets right-sized. And we know that the power of thought, the principle of thought, is in action. And I can just talk here despite my head running miles and miles and miles. So sorry, long-winded way of saying there's always hope. Thanks.
Yeah, there's always hope. Thank you. Yeah, and even if it's a calm mind, a settled mind, it's still the principle of thought in action. If it's extensive or like thunderstorm, it's still thought in action.
Yeah.
No matter what. And it goes up and it goes down. And it comes new and then it comes an old thought, it feels like, because we have thought that thought before. It feels very repetitive sometimes. But it's still a new thought, but it's very similar or a copy of the one we had before. It's not the same. So trying to change a thought is trying to change a thought that we don't have anymore. So we're just adding a new thought that we're going to change, or that's going to be looking a little bit different.
Yeah. I think, but Christine, no, it was made. I mean, I mentioned their names because they create this beautiful space as you guys do here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the words used was, the horse has already left the stable. You know, like the thought's out there. It's not, that is not the one to follow to solve, to settle mind, to settle your being at the moment. It'll run on and on till it runs out of steam. As you said in the beginning, simply look at the thought with a capital T in action, rather than the horse running after the horse which has left the stable.
Because then we're going into content, and that
Yes.
that's the weeds, right? We will never clear that out. It's not necessary, even if we think and believe that. Sometimes I do. Well, this is very necessary to sort out. So yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Daniel, it's about 30 after, and we so appreciate you coming on today to help us soothe our unsettled minds. And if people would like to connect with you, how can they find you and how can they reach out to you?
So yeah, so if they want to reach out, I can. The easiest way is to my web page, maybe humanchange.se, and then I hardly do Instagram or Facebook anymore. I connected with Dennis today earlier. I was like, okay, connect, and it's like I rarely there, and it's I really love not to be there, but I'm more on LinkedIn. So if you have LinkedIn, you're more than welcome to connect there. I'm putting the link into the chat, and then otherwise it's humanchange.se. Probably gonna have www. Yeah, but I would say that's the best way to connect. And you're more than welcome to connect and fire off if you have any questions, or just connect because you want to.
Well, and I so appreciate we've got people from all around the world, and thank you for tuning in. I think it's late at night where you are. It's very early in the morning where Divyesh is, and we appreciate your time, and it's the most valuable resources, your time and attention. So I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope you got a ton out of it. Daniel's insights were more simple this time, I feel like.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. If you liked this conversation, you can go and listen to my podcast. I think it was more than a year ago. We did one.
Spring 2023.
Yes. You can go and listen to that one as well. And you have a podcast as well. So
Yeah, yeah, I have, and you will find it on if you go to humanchange.se or search for Daniel Magnusson Human Change. It's not active in that sense, coming new episodes at the moment. It's been sleeping for over a year now, but who knows? Yeah, so and I want to say thank you to you also, Rich, for having me on, and thank you everyone here who's showing up and spending time of your life here. I really appreciate it.
Cool. If you would like, you can unmute and say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Zach.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.